happy Wednesday. Testing out this new time. We'll see how it goes because I do have kids in the house. And normally I try and do this when I don't have kids in the house, but I wanted to try out a new time and we'll see how it goes. So hopefully we won't get too many interruptions. If we do, I apologize. But yeah, I've been trying to find a good time to do this, just kind of hangout stream. I have a few different times that it might work in my schedule, but yeah, it's going to be kind of casual. I've got some of my favorite hyperfocus things that we can talk a little bit about. We'll do some question cards, and then I do have a couple of articles that I read recently that I thought would be interesting to go over. And then, I've got some crafts and things we can do. So it's going to be, again, kind of a random night. And if you're on Replay Crew, welcome, always. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. I'm going to run the intro real quick, and then we'll just go. See how this thing goes. Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome. All right, I'm really hoping that my mic is working. If you're in the chat and you can hear me, the red light is on my mic, and I can't remember if that means that it's muted or not muted. So if you could put a thumbs up if you can hear me. I'm going to check my sound on another window and see. Okay, I think you should be able to hear me. So hopefully. All right. Okay. Where should we start? Let's just start with some icebreaker question. Oh, I know where we need to start. Sorry. Medication is worn off for the day, so this really is going to be ADHD on full display. But let's start with cleansing with the Palo Santo. I usually do this and light my candles and stuff before I start stream, but I didn't do that today, so we're going to do it now. And I need to get better matches because these ones are crappy. Little ASMR match lighting, maybe. Like I said, these matches are crap. Okay. I'll light my candle first. This is one of the, my favorite things I could talk about is these candles. I am picky about, scents in my house because a lot of artificial fragrances give me a headache. But these are from a local Utah company called Copper and Pine Candle Company, and they are all natural fragrances and stuff, and I love them. And I got out my tropical ones because I'm praying for spring. We have had a couple of rounds of fake spring. I know it's too early for it to be actual spring here, but it's been snowy and gross the last couple of days, which makes it really hard for me to get out of bed, especially after it's warmed up and then gets cold again. All I want to do is hibernate. This is Palo Santo. It's supposed to be good for clearing emotions and stuff, supposedly. I'm not really a huge woo person, but I like the way it smells. So I just light it. Let it go for a second. Turn it out. Smudge my office with it. My kids hate the way it smells, but I like it. So let that go over, and maybe it'll help clear my mind, and it won't be too many ADHD squirrels tonight, but no guarantees because the squirrels are strong today. All right. So these are my pop culture tabletop questions. We usually use as an icebreaker. And we're going to go with the 90s this time, since that's when I was in high school and middle school. Oh, here's a good one. Okay, see it? What kind of car did you own in the 90s? I have good car stories. And there are some nice ADHD trails that run through my high school car situations. So the cars, my first car, so it would have been 96 was when I turned 16. And my first car was, it had been my grandmother's. So I had a grandmother who had early onset Alzheimer's. She lived with us. It was her car until she couldn't drive anymore. And then my dad drove it for a few years. And then when I turned 16, it became the car for I drive. This car was a Mercedes. Now, before you get too excited, it was a 1980, this was in 1996, right? A 1980 diesel Mercedes. Not turbo diesel, diesel. And the thing, you could hear it coming from like, I swear, 3 blocks away. Just it would like had this rattle in this diesel Mercedes. And it was like a grayish blue. It had automatic windows, but they didn't work. And you could like slide the window up and down with your hands. Yeah, super bougie. The thing went zero. Hi, Cap. It's good to see you. Went 0 to 60 in like 15 minutes. It was a great first car because it was like built like a tank. But it was diesel. And so I knew that because it was diesel, I had to add oil I had to check my oil every time I filled up the car with gas, right? Okay, I'll have a few stories. First story in the Mercedes. We had so I remember, oh my gosh. My parents need to never watch my channel. I don't even think they know this exists. So the likelihood is great because they have a secret that I have never come clean on to my parents. And I am going to tell it tonight. So hopefully they never see this. So it was just a stupid ADHD teenager thing. I was one of the first in my like group of friends to get my license. So the first time my parents, okay, slow down, back up. The ADHD is ADHD. So the laws in our state now to get a driver's license, like you have to have 40 hours of driving before you can get your license with your parents. Like they have to sign off on this whole thing. We just went through this process with one of my kids. So back then you didn't have anything. You had to take a driver's ed class and you had to pass the tests, right? The written test and the driving test. Well, my parents put on some additional restrictions for me in driving, and they wanted me to get a certain number of hours driving by myself before I had friends in the car with me. I spent a lot of that time just like driving to and from my friends' houses, getting my driving experience. But this particular night, it was the first time that I had been authorized to have like friends in my car, right? And we had been at a basketball game, and I was like driving all my friends home, and I was the first one of my friends to have a driver's license. I was like limited. My parents were good parents and they had a lot of rules and I just didn't always follow them. And this was one of those instances. I had like a whole bunch of people piled in my car and we were going to drop one of my friends off, and she lived at the end of this cul-de-sac. And on the way into this cul-de-sac was like a really big dip. And I'm driving, I got all my friends in the car. There was like 6 people crammed in the back seat. Not authorized with the rules to have that many kids, that many people in my car. And they were like, go do the, jump the dip. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to go flying. And I like floored it. And we went flying over this dip and bottomed out big time on the dip, right? Because this car did not have like great clearance or like shocks. It was not like, this is the part of the story that my parents don't know, is that it was intentional. So we drive down, we drop my friend off, we like pull the loop and are driving back, and all of a sudden my car just like starts slowing down. And I'm like, what is happening? So we pull over and we look behind us, and there's a trail of oil all the way behind the car. And like we could see, and my one friend who like fancied himself a mechanic like sticks his head underneath and he's like, yep, it's oil. And we were like, yeah, we can all see that. So when we had bottomed out, we had like ripped a hole in the oil pan, and it was just like draining around the. So I'm like freaking out. This was before cell phone days because I'm old. I can't remember. I don't think I had a pager at one point, but I don't think I had it at this point. But so we like send a couple of our friends down to my friend's house at the corner in the cul-de-sac to call my parents to come up. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, there's too many people in the car. Like, come up with this whole story. And to this day, my parents still think it was an accident, that I was just like going too fast and I didn't realize that there was that big of a dip, and it just anyway, so I had to replace the oil pan. That was car number 1. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but like it was the first time so my parents just kind of chalked it up to like inexperience with anyway, that I don't remember like how we got the car to the shop or whatever. My dad took care of all that, but I was just like panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, my parents are gonna kill me. So I learned a lesson there. I didn't ever do the jumping the dip thing again in that car. Don't tell them. They don't know about this channel. Oh my gosh. I wonder if they figured it out. I really think they still think that it was more accident than it was. So continuing with that car, like I said, the automatic windows didn't work. Like you could just put your hand and like pull the window down. And a couple of my guy friends who thought they were, I absolutely should private the video after this. They don't even know how to watch. Like they don't watch YouTube, and like they'll look videos up on YouTube, or if you send them something, but they don't like, they're not on YouTube a lot. So I'm not too worried about it, unless one of you at some point meets me in real life and tells them, shush. It's like 25 years later, 27 years later. So a couple of my guy friends always thought it was super funny to throw the windows down in my car, unlock the doors, hop in, put my car in neutral. I don't even think they know how to subscribe to channels on YouTube. They like don't have accounts, which is fine with me because I think I don't know. Probably have some other family members who do subscribe, but I don't think they really watch, which is fine. Anyway, so my friends they would always throw the window down, hop in my car, put it in neutral, and push it out of its parking place in the school parking lot. And so it would be like blocking the way. And they thought this was so funny. And people would always get so annoyed. They're like, Nicole, your car's in the middle of the thing again. Yeah. So one day they did it. They would do it like once a week. It was like this running gag with my friends, Elliot and Marcus. And one day they did this, they put it out, and I went and got in my car, and it wouldn't go forward. It would only go in reverse somehow. I don't know what they did or if it was just the time, but the transmission went out in the car after that. Like I couldn't get home because I could only drive in reverse. So then the next car after that was a Chevy Blazer. I was moving up in the world. I think it was like an 85 or an 86 Blazer that had been my grandfather's, who had recently passed away. So I had that car, and I had only had it for a few months. I think it was in my senior year. And so in the Mercedes, it was a diesel. I knew I had to check the oil every time I checked the gas because it would burn through oil. So I just always kept like a box, of like 6 things of oil. And every time I filled up my car, I would make sure like the oil was topped up. The Blazer apparently had a slow oil leak. My dad had been driving the car, and they didn't tell me about this oil leak. So this one was not my fault. They didn't tell me. This was not me being stupid. I assumed, oh, this car is not a diesel. Like, I don't need to check the oil every time I put gas in the car, right? Like, when you have a normal car, you check your oil like every once in a while when you get your oil changed, maybe once in between on an older car, right? But you're not like, you don't have to check the oil every time you put gas in the car like I had to do with my diesel Mercedes. So I was up, I had to drive up to, it was the state championship diving meet. I was on the diving team in high school, and it was up the canyon up in Park City. I lived in Salt Lake. So it was like a 45-minute drive up the canyon to this high school where they held the state championship diving meets. And I drove up there, and like we went to go get lunch, and we're driving down to the Arby's and back, and my car just starts like shaking. Like, I don't know. It was just, I was like, something is seriously wrong. So I pulled in the parking lot. My dad was coming up to the diving meet later. I had to be there earlier in the day because I was the captain of our like 3-person diving team. And so I had to be there earlier in the day. My dad was coming up later. And he got there, and I was like, something is weird with my car. So he goes out and he checks some things. He checks the oil, and it's like bone dry. And he's like, oh, you just ran out of oil. So he goes to the store, picks up a few quarts of oil, puts it in, turns the car on, and all of the oil that he just put in dumped out into the parking, just like flowed down the parking lot. Yeah, so it turns out it had been completely out of oil and had thrown a rod through the engine shaft, and we had to get a new engine put in that car. Oil and me and cars, apparently not a good mix, but those were my cars that I drove in the 90s. That one wasn't my fault, though. That was my parents' fault. They didn't tell me that that car had an oil leak and that I needed to check it all the time. So it's not like I was not already in the habit. I did that with my other car until it died because it was not worth putting a new transmission in the Mercedes. But they did put a new engine in the Blazer, and my dad drove that car for another. I went out of state. I went to Hawaii for college, so I didn't take a car with me. My dad drove that car for another like 5 years. Cab, it was very stressful. And I have learned now, having a teenage driver. Now, I wasn't one I never got in a car accident. I didn't run into anything. I was like a very safe driver. I was a very cautious driver because when I was 16, a few months after I turned 16, I was a passenger with my boyfriend in a car, and we got into a really bad car accident. One day I'll have to go see if I can find the pictures, but it was a bad. So he was driving his dad's yellow convertible Mustang GT. It was a beautiful car, but it was in March, actually. I believe actually it was like March 17th or 18th. many, many moons ago. And March in Utah, like I mentioned at the beginning, like it warms up and then it gets snowy again, and then it warms up and it gets snowy again. Like we have this like fake spring. And then, so it was one of those kinds of days where it had been raining in the evening. And then as it got later, it kind of started to turn to snow. But at this time, it was like in that like middle sleety, like wet snow rain mix, which is the worst on the roads. It's like right when it starts to freeze, it gets pretty slippery. And it had been raining pretty hard. So there was a lot of water on the roads, not snow yet, but water and just kind of sleet starting to accumulate. And my boyfriend was driving and we like changed lanes to pass somebody, and just they had sport tires on it. Like it started fishtailing in the weather, and we ended up running into a Bronco head on. And then I think we hit like 2 other cars. It was a bad accident. I still have a scar on my collarbone right here from the seatbelt. If we had not been wearing seatbelts and airbags, like the driver of the Bronco was not wearing a seatbelt. He was in the ICU for like a couple of weeks with a bruised heart. And we were in the car that got the most crunched. So after that, I was a very cautious driver. I still am a pretty cautious driver. I have my ADHD moments, but I am not like, I don't get in accidents. I don't run into stuff. Apparently I just have problems with oil in cars. I did learn my lesson after that. And try not to drive cars that are just quite so beatery, you know. They were teenager, go ahead and beat this car up, it's paid off kind of cars. My younger sister, she had a nicer, newer car than I did, and she would run into like parked cars and like the like yellow poles and drive-throughs, things like that. So she banged up that car like crazy. And that's what has been happening with my oldest, who is recently a driver. And I've just learned that as a parent of teenage drivers, you have to expect weird things like that to happen. And I hope that he doesn't get in accidents, because his insurance as a teenage boy driver is already insanely expensive. Okay, I'm going to read this out, Kat, because this is great. First car I bought in the 90s was a VW Golf stick shift, brand new. That's bougie. First week it stalled and couldn't start again. Happened in the middle of an intersection. Mortified. Okay, stick shifts. Stick shifts are not my jam. I had one car. It wasn't my car. It was my roommate's car in college, but I drove it around some. There was a stick. And my parents had an old Jeep Cherokee that they still had when I was like learning to drive, but they stressed me out. And we lived like in Salt Lake Valley, like you got mountains, right? And then you have like the foothills where there's houses. And then like there's a lot of like, goes from mountains to valley floor very steeply. And my high school was like in the middle of those hills. So like we come down from our house a little bit, and then there was like a huge hill down there. Like when I say my car would go 0 to 60 in 15 minutes, like we would go down that hill to where like the fast food places are and the grocery store was for lunch. And it would legitimately take me like 10 minutes to drive that hill in the Mercedes. But yeah, those hills would stress me out so much when I was driving my parents' Jeep. Like I do not love a stick shift. It's too many things to manage. And maybe, I know you like get used to it and stuff, but I feel like maybe my ADHD made that a little harder. My undiagnosed ADHD at this time. I do not like hills. Learned to drive standard with a Mustang GT, and it roared. Yeah. That car was pretty. And he was driving, his dad was out of town, and I think he was authorized to take the car that night, but not authorized to destroy the car. It was very sad, but everyone was okay. It was a little scary at the scene. I was the only one that was like coherent, because my boyfriend had like the steering wheel hit him in the head when it exploded, the airbag. And so he had like a head injury, and was like, his short-term memory was like looping. And then my friend in the back seat had like bruised ribs, and she was just like screaming and moaning, and I figured out later that I actually did get knocked out by the airbag when they went off. Sorry, I'm like waving this little fidget around. That's probably annoying. Um, yeah, because there's some time missing. Like when we got out of the car, there was already some first responders there. And I remember like closing my eyes at impact and then opening my eyes when we were getting out of the car. And there was already some first responders. So there's a little bit of missing time there. And I did, I believe, break my nose. But there's my driving in high school stories for you. Somebody have to find the picture because I like the airbag went off and it was like getting punched in the face. I had first and second degree abrasion and chemical burns like all over my face, and both of my eyes were swollen shut. It broke my nose, which I don't think they realized at the time, but like we're looking at pictures later and I'm crooked. I did have a bloody nose. Emergency rooms. I don't know. There's a lot of things they should have looked at and checked for that they didn't. But anyway, that's a story for a different day. But can't remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, somebody else to see if I could find those pictures. It was right around the time in the mid 90s when like airbags were then becoming standard on all cars, and they were like all of the newest information was don't let your kids ride in the front seat with airbags. And kids weren't loving that. And so all the neighbors were like bringing their kids over to see me because I looked so scary. They were like, see, this is why you can't sit in the front seat. But anyhow, yeah, exciting experiences there. Okay, that was a nice little 30-minute icebreaker. Good stories. That was a good question. Sometimes I flip through these and find ones that I know I can talk about because some of them are really dumb, but some of them are actually good conversation starters. And that is one of them. Because who doesn't have good stories about driving in high school? Because it's... Yes, I fully became an after-school special poster child. Like, legitimately, the neighbors were bringing their little kids over to visit. Like, they were coming over to, like, check on me, you know, because we had some really great families in our neighborhood growing up that were really close, and they were, like, bringing treats and stuff. But then when they saw me, they were like, yeah, I'll be right back. And they would come back with, like, their 10-year-old kids. And be like, see, you can't sit in the front seat because this is what can happen. I was like, one eye could open like a little bit and my face was like all scratched and burned, and it was really funny. I looked terrible. And then we have pictures like a week and a half later, it was spring break and my family was going to Orlando to Disney World, and my family didn't go on huge vacations like that often. Like that was the only time we ever went to Disney World and when I was growing up. And I like had to wear this big bucket hat to like keep all the sun out of my face so I wouldn't scar. And we have all these pictures, and I just have like these horrific looking like green bruises up and down all my arm. Like I looked terrible. Oh, good times, good times. But I was a cautious 16-year-old driver after that because it was very scary experience. I still don't like that feeling of like your back end going out. Like we go down to a big lake in southern Utah called Lake Powell and do boating and stuff in the summers. And sometimes some of the people come, we go with a couple of families or with my extended family. It's like 30 people, but we'll have like wave runner jet ski type things. And I do not like, I used to, when I was younger, like pre that accident, like we would go and you go real fast and then you turn it and it like spins out. After that accident, I was like, nope, I do not like that feeling of like losing your control of the back end of whatever I'm riding on. And I don't like in a car, like accelerating really fast. I don't know. It's just, yeah. Not good. We were all okay. Everyone walked away. The one guy, I just knew that he was in the ICU with a bruised heart. I'm assuming, I didn't hear anything after that. So nobody died, but, and we all like were home from the hospital that night, but it was not a fun experience. Okay, moving on. I have some of my kind of like hyperfocus favorite things that I was going to share. The first is my current favorite toothpaste. It's so weird, but like sometimes as ADHDers, we have to like have something exciting to get us to do the mundane, boring things. I've always been good about my teeth because like my mother instilled in me in a very young age, like a lot of anxiety about my teeth. But my kids, on the other hand, are not the best at brushing their teeth. And I found these toothpaste. None of these are sponsored things, by the way. They're just things I like. If they wanted to sponsor me, that would be great. But my channel's not big enough for anybody to care about that anymore. But these are from High Smile. You've probably seen ads for these on like TikTok and stuff. High Smile toothpaste. I think they're an Australian company. I freaking love these things. These are my favorite flavors. I have ordered like a whole bunch of them. My kids like the like strawberry watermelon. There's like a great bubblegum one. There's a gummy bear flavor that my youngest really likes. These are my favorite flavors, and I rotate through them. It just helps keep toothbrushing exciting. You'll notice a theme here. So this one's pineapple. They taste really good. They do have fluoride in them, which I'm a fan of. Coconut whip. I really like this one. Mango sorbet. And this one is my favorite. They are so cute too. We like put them in my kids' stockings for Christmas this year and got them each like a couple of flavors that they would like. They're like so cute and colorful, and I don't know, I just like them. This one's lychee, and it's delicious. And my husband doesn't love them. He's like a mint toothpaste guy, but I like them, and they come in like tons of different flavors, and they have like new flavors coming out all the time. But I don't know if you notice. Oh, hold on 1 second. Sorry, child interruption. Close, not fruit. Get more specific. I'll give you a hint. If I can pick this up without burning myself. Can you see it? I'm a tropicals gal. So yeah, lychee, coconut, mango, pineapple. I like my tropical flavors and scents. So yeah, High Smile toothpaste. Go check them out. Or don't, whatever. I don't get anything from them. I just like them. They make brushing your teeth a little more fun and more enticing if you have children who struggle with that. My youngest in particular, he has a lot of sensory sensitivities. And so finding a toothpaste that he will tolerate has been an issue for a long time. He likes the strawberry, and the gummy bear is his current favorite. And he'll brush his teeth twice a day. So win-win. All the wins. Okay, my next thing is, where did I put it? Here. Yes. Okay. In fact, I'm going to take one right now because I forgot to bring my water bottle down. And I'm getting a little in the mouth. So it is the end of cold and flu season. I did not know these things existed. Sorry, I'm listening. There are children about. We'll see. I think we're okay. But these are Hall's Minis. These are sugar-free ones, so they don't give you that like nasty sugar candy throat, but they're just little. But they're still strong and they still last a while. But they're just these little guys, and they have them in a few different flavors, cherry and like lemon, and then this is the watermelon one, and they taste really good. Oh, I just found them. They're easy to keep in my bag. My kids don't get into them. The dogs don't get into them. My dogs, for some reason, like if I have a bag of cough drops in my bag, they will tear into it, but they don't get into these, which is probably good because they probably have xylitol in them. Maybe. Maybe not. But yeah. Hall's Minis. Other cool thing that I found. I got a new set of my favorite pens. These are my favorite pens. They're the Inkjoy color ones. And I get them in all colors because I'm trying to be more organized and do my planner. So here's the thing. I've never seen these in the store. I got them off of Amazon when I was like looking, I just needed some cough drops delivered like that day. And I was like, what is that? So I stuck one in the cart and I loved them. And I ordered like 10 more. I have only found them on Amazon, but there's Hall's Minis. I don't know. Maybe if you have like a company that is like a sister company of Hall's in your country, look them up on Amazon. I don't know, but love them. Not ever buying any other cough drops. The only other cough drops I like are there's a Ricola like natural one that has like horsehound in it or whatever. I like those, but I just like that these are tiny. I know tiny things are fun, right? There was something else. I can't remember what it was. I did get my screaming goat. That's fun. I made the mistake of showing it to my youngest child, and now he sneaks in my office all the time while I'm working and pushes it like 25 times. But pens. These are they are Papermate Inkjoy gel pens, and I love them. And this is usually the set I get of 10, but I think they have one that even comes with like 16 colors. Papermate Inkjoy. I like a thicker, juicier pen. So these are a 0.7. I have another pen that's a 0.5, and I just don't like it as much. But these are like the perfect level of like juicy and lovely for, I don't know. They are my favorite pens. Papermate Inkjoys. I use those, and then I do like the friction erasable pens. I also like these for planners because I can erase, but they just don't have, these are still like, they're the right thickness, like they're a 0.7 still, but I don't know, they just don't write as juicy as the other ones, so I prefer the others. But when I need erasable, I will use these because I hate pencil. Pencil smudges all over my hand. Hate it. I have like a weird pencil grip. I don't like hold my pencil normal, and so then I get weird. But I like the Inkjoy ones better, but I do like these for writing my planners if because I can move things around and change them. But I've been working on trying to get together. See, I don't think there's anything on this that is like a block schedule for my week and color coding it all. I worked on that last weekend and was like, oh, I'm going to go so like I'm going to be so organized and productive this week. And it hasn't happened. I've been really struggling lately. And that's why I found this topic that I'm going to bring some articles up in a minute. But sleep has been an issue lately. And I do like take sleeping pills, and because I do have historically a lot of sleep issues, anxiety related, but I do also believe I have delayed sleep phase syndrome. I've always been a night owl. I've always preferred to stay up and not been good at waking up early. But lately I've been having some issues with my sleep, which has been causing me to struggle in the mornings to get going. And I've been napping more, and I got to get some things figured out. But that brings me to the articles that I was going to share. Yes, friction is too limited in color range, but the InkJoys have all the colors, and I just love them. I have found a big set of the friction ones that does have a lot more colors, but they're not as vibrant when you write with them. And so I don't know, they're just not my favorite. I like them because I like an erasable pen for specific things. But if I have to pick a pen, the Papermate InkJoys are my favorite. Okay, so let me pull up these. I have two articles that are related. And it's some new research. Couple of newer research articles that came out in the last little bit here. I'm working on getting access to the actual journals that these come from so that we can go over them a little bit more in depth, as opposed to these articles that I have that are a little bit more summary. So let me share the right tab. This is the first one. That. Okay. So I'm going to click over to this. Sleep problem. So it's ADHD sleep problems linked to gender and mental health. So I found this one interesting. We've talked about sleep problems before, but I'm going to pop this over into another screen so I can still see you a little bit. Yeah, see, my problem with this, with being the night owl, is that like my ideal sleep time, if I could like sleep when my body wants to sleep, it'd be from about 1:30 or 2 to about 10:30. Perfect. Unfortunately, like my teenagers, I don't have to get up with as much in the morning. My husband drives the one to school, and I no longer have to drive the other to school because he's driving. But sorry, distraction messages popping up on my screen. I still have to get up and get my other kid ready for school in the morning, and like I have to work and stuff. And we have an office that has like normal hours, right? So I can't be making phone calls for work at 9:00 at night, which is when I feel like I'm the most productive. Society doesn't work on my like being the most productive from like 2 p.m. to midnight. I have to function in a world that I need to be going to sleep earlier and waking up earlier. And it's been a constant problem for me. But let's read this article real quick. Okay, sleep problems disproportionately impact adults with ADHD. The study found a higher risk for women and those with coexisting mental health conditions. And since a lot of us with ADHD have coexisting mental health conditions, primarily anxiety and depression, here we go. So, sleep problems are highly prevalent among adults with ADHD. Individuals who have ADHD and one or more psychiatric comorbidities face an increased risk for disordered sleep, according to a study published in the Journal of Attention Disorders. Hold, please. Sorry. This is why I don't usually stream at this time of day, because I get interrupted by small children who are fighting with each other. Okay. This study followed a large sample of adults with ADHD in the Netherlands after they were referred to an outpatient mental health clinic. Nearly 2/3 of these patients screened positive for a sleep problem, most screened positive for delayed sleep phase syndrome, followed by insomnia and restless leg syndrome. So, delayed sleep phase syndrome is extremely common with ADHD. I always tell my sister, we were just meant to be the ones that took the late shift and watching for lions. We're not meant to go to sleep at 9 o'clock. Um, so we've talked about delayed sleep phase syndrome before, but basically our bodies, if you have delayed sleep phase syndrome, it's your like natural circadian rhythm is shifted at least 2 hours from the norm. So typically brains produce melatonin starting like cued by when the sun goes down. Usually about 2 hours after the sun goes down is when you're like time to sleep is, right? So for people with delayed sleep phase syndrome, that's at least 2 hours after that. It can be up to like 6 hours after that. So like my natural sleeping time of wanting to go to sleep at 1:30 or 2, when most people their clock would have them falling asleep between 10 and 11. So and then insomnia. So it's like it's kind of tricky because it's like, is it delayed sleep phase or is it insomnia or is it both? Women with ADHD were more likely to report types of sleep problems compared to men with ADHD. Women more often reported insomnia, hypersomnia, which is sleeping too much, which I also have that, and parasomnia, while men more often reported sleep related breathing disorders. So that's your apnea, right? Adults with ADHD and mental health conditions face a higher likelihood of having any type of sleep problem and of having more than one sleep problem than those with ADHD alone. The risk of sleep problems was highest in adults with PTSD, followed by substance use disorder, depression, anxiety, personality disorders. So, I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? Like, does the ADHD causes the sleep problems, and then the sleep problems cause the mental health problems, or mental, it's like what causes what? I don't know. So, why do adults with ADHD struggle with sleep? Sleep disorders impact around 50 million Americans, or 15% of the US population. This percentage is significantly higher in the ADHD populations, as shown in the current study. According to data cited by the authors, disordered sleep affects an estimated of 40% to 80% of adults with ADHD. So I'll have to look what that is. I've seen 70 to 75% of adults with ADHD have sleep disorders. So, I mean, that falls in that range, but the 40% I think is for sure a low number. The most common sleep disorders are similar for both groups and include insomnia, restless leg syndrome, narcolepsy, and sleep apnea. ADHD and sleep go hand in hand, and the impact of one disorder can worsen the symptoms of the other. For example, the American Academy of Neurology found that people with ADHD and RLS, restless leg syndrome, experience more severe RLS symptoms than those without ADHD. Aren't we just so lucky? Many sleep problems are biological, but they can also be behaviorally motivated. A study cited by the authors shows that cognitive behavioral symptoms such as bedtime procrastination can delay sleep onset and potentially disrupt melatonin production. So it's interesting because, like, is our clock set that way because it's naturally set that way, or is it because we put off getting ready for bed because of a task initiation problem, right? Like, there's multiple factors that go into these sleep issues because getting ready for bed is a whole process that requires executive functioning, which we struggle with. Yeah, symptoms of ADHD are right here. Exacerbate the things that make sleep hard for all of us, says Joel Nigg, PhD, in his 2018 webinar with Attitude, Sleep, and the ADHD Brain, Why It's Critical and How to Get More. Your body reacts more strongly to stimulation. You're more hyper aroused by things that happen during the day. It's harder to turn your brain off. It's a natural side effect of what ADHD is. Sleep requires the opposite of the energy that ADHD provokes, making sleep naturally difficult. That's why it takes the kind of deliberate attention, behavioral strategy, or kind of tackling of this so often for those with ADHD. Lucky us. Here, this thing is hard for you because it's hard for you. So you have to do things that are even harder for you to fix the thing that's hard for you. I feel like that's what it is with a lot of like executive functioning and ADHD symptoms. It's like, oh, well, to manage your executive functioning, you need to be really good at using a planner. But one of the executive functions is planning and prioritization, and we suck at that. It's like, in order to get better at the thing that your brain doesn't do well, you have to consistently do these things that are really hard for your brain to do. Yeah. Okay, what are the consequences of untreated sleep problems? The impact of misdiagnosing symptoms of disordered sleep can have long-term consequences, leading to poor treatment and persistence and aggravation of symptoms, the authors wrote. Symptoms of poor sleep can look like ADHD and vice versa, making them somewhat difficult to differentiate. So if you have chronic sleep deprivation, it can look like ADHD symptoms, right? Trouble focusing, trouble with executive functioning, emotional control, things like that. Those are things that happen to neurotypical brains that aren't getting enough sleep. Left untreated, disordered sleep can worsen with age and cause a ripple effect from caregivers to their children. Sung did a study in 2008 which found that moderate or severe sleep problems in children with ADHD were strongly associated with the mental health of their primary caregivers and with those caregivers' work attendance and overall family functioning. So we can pass on some of these behaviors to our kids, right? Like, kids require structure and require us to get them to sleep. And so if we're struggling with our mental health, then we're going to struggle to care for our kids. And then it just cycles and cycles. And then you throw in the genetic component of neurodevelopmental disorders. And yeah. The good news is that treatments for specific sleep problems are available, relatively accessible to implement in ADHD patients, and can improve ADHD treatment results substantially. Cognitive behavioral therapy and lifestyle changes are first-line treatments for many sleep disorders and can be more effective than sleep medicine. And sometimes you need both, and that's okay. Limitations, strengths, and future research. The study followed 3,691 adults diagnosed with ADHD from 2018 to 2020. Data was assessed via electronic patient files and included an even male to female ratio. So this was a study that was more like a review of records than like, it's just one type of research. We'll talk more about research stuff at some point as we go through. I want to do kind of a weekly review of new research stream where we go through the actual articles, not summary articles like this, but the actual journal entries. And we will need to talk a little bit about different types of studies and what the statistic means and things like that. But that's not what we're doing tonight. Okay. Adults with ADHD were referred to one of 46 specialized outpatient clinics in the Netherlands by their general practitioner or mental health counselor. The Holland Sleep Disorder Questionnaire was used to assess sleep disorders. It was used as a screening tool and not to diagnose. The DIVA-5 was used to test for ADHD, and the MIN was used to screen for psychiatric comorbidities. Limitations of the study include lack of a control group. So because they're doing a review of records, right, they're reviewing people who have sought out treatment. So it's not necessarily like you don't have a control sample to compare to. And although some patients had been diagnosed with a sleep disorder before being referred to an outpatient clinic, the HSDQ was only able to screen for sleep problems. Some data, such as BMI and treatment status, was not accounted for as it was not systematically recorded in patient files. So this, I always feel like, is the most interesting part of a research article, is where they talk about like the strengths and weaknesses of the study. So this in particular, future studies would benefit by measuring causal factors contributing to sleep problems, and more subjective sleep parameters as opposed to just a review of records. Yeah. So this one was interesting to me just because the differences in gender between the two groups. So we will take that down. Things are kind of going nuts around here, so I might have to, I had one more article, but we'll have to talk about that another time, that talks about sleep problems in kids, and a link to low iron. So I thought it was interesting, but we'll save that for next time. Yeah, sometimes you just figure out what works, right? If you can work with a different market or find a swing shift or things like that, like that works with your natural sleep cycle, that's better. Sometimes we can't do that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up just because I can hear things getting chaotic and I need to go be mom. Normally, I think I will do this Wednesday stream a little bit earlier. So I started at 7:30 my time. I'd like to start by like 6:30 and maybe a little bit earlier than that. That would give me a little bit of more time before the chaos of this particular time of day kicks in our household. But thank you for being here. If you're here on replay, crew, thank you so much. Oh, taxes. I'm so sorry. We just got our tax bill back from our accountant. We have people that do that because we have a small business and they do our accounting for that. So they do our taxes for us and it's painful, but I appreciate you being here and chatting with me. And hopefully as I get more consistent at this time, we'll have a few more people coming. But anyway, I'm going to just run the outro and we will see you all next time. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be yet, but I'll keep you posted. If you watch the channel posts, I try and communicate when I'm planning on doing things on there. And thanks for being here. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.